Throughout his work, Chuck Palahniuk has demonstrated a preoccupation with divorcing characters from intellectually and socially constructed rules and morals, as well as the books as artifacts in themselves, with subjects including porn, masturbation, terrorism, and bowels. Predominantly, Palahniuk's novels are about people marginalised by society, and trying to connect with others through self-destructive aggressiveness. Each successive book attempts to out-scandalise the last, as if their aim is not to shock, but to naturalise the readers to the profane. In a theory inextricably linked with the Carnivalesque, Bakhtin asserts that the body is incomplete and receptive of the world. Alongside inverting social and corporate hierarchies, Palahniuk demonstrates a potent focus on orifices. Oral, anal, vaginal, and their usage, even destruction, as a means of social bonding, and of a blurring the boundary between the internal and the external world. Originating from the Italian la Grotesca, which holds roots in grotta, or cave grotesque, emerged in the late 15th century to designate a previously unknown ancient form of ornamental painting. Since then, its meaning as noun and adjective has meandered from playfully gay and carelessly fantastic to something rather more ominous, strange and sinister against the world of the familiar. The first instance of its use in the German language refers to a monstrous fusion of human and non-human elements. There has long been an isolating of the grotesque in art and literature, written off as simply other. To quote Kaiser, as long as the ornamental and pictorial grotesques were regarded merely as something alien to nature and arising from the artist's subjective imagination, they could justly be rejected by those who held that art is based on the principle of imitation. This leads on neatly to Bakhtin's theories of the Carnivalesque and thus the grotesque. Put heinously simply, unlike today's glitzy examples, carnivals were used by the church and ruling classes to allow the populace to exist outside normal social and moral boundaries for a set amount of time so that they could continue to be well behaved for the rest of the year. Shepard tells us that liberation achieved through ambivalent degradation and reversal of proper order and value, it lays the emphasis on the lower bodily stratum, which has a unifying, debasing, uncrowning and simultaneously regenerating function. And here, the grotesque body emerges at times as an original truth. The grotesque body and its focus on the most universally human parts of people are crucial in the Carnivalesque and in the freeing laughter of Carnival. Things are tested and re-evaluated in the dimensions of laughter, which has defeated fear and all gloomy seriousness. This is why the material bodily lower stratum is needed, for it gaily and simultaneously materializes and unburdens. It liberates objects from the snares of false seriousness, from illusions and subliminations inspired by fear. It is this definition of the grotesque that recurs across Palahniuk's work, principally exalting a lowering of all that is sacred and idolized to the material level of the bodily sphere. The grotesque ignores the impenetrable surface that closes and limits the body as a separate and completed phenomena. It is obsessed with the orifices of the body, where the barrier between the human and everything else does not exist, where there is interchange and interaction. For Bakhtin, eating, defecating and sex are all integral to our experiencing of the world. Bakhtin asserts that the classical statue has no openings or orifices, whereas grotesque costume and masks emphasize the gaping mouth, the protuberant belly and buttocks, the feet and the genitals. Palahniuk is obsessed with orifices and of damage to them. Let us now evidence this within a selection of his books. Snuff. Palahniuk's latest book is his venture into pornography, with descriptions of the body grotesque rather than titillating. Cassie Wright is a porn queen 20 years past her prime, and attempted to set the world record for most sexual partners in a single film. The book is told from the perspectives of 3 men in the queue, and Sheila, Cassie's wrangler, who is managing the organising that several hundred penises and 1 vagina requires. Mr. 600 is a veteran contemporary of Miss Wright, perhaps reuniting for old time's sake. Mr. 137 is a recognised actor who lost his TV series under scandalous circumstances, and Mr. 72 is a hopeless romantic who brings flowers to the shoot and believes he is Cassie's son. The intermingling of genitals and bodies has an emphasis on the strong odds of destroying the Porn Queen's vagina and uterus cave grotto. The title refers to the notion that no woman could survive this exhausted sexual grind. In fact, committing sexual suicide might as well be Cassie's goal. Choke. Victor Mancini is a medical school dropout who's taken a job playing an Irish indentured servant in a colonial-era theme park in order to help care for his Alzheimer's-afflicted mother. Victor Mancini is a sex addict. Victor Mancini is a direct descendant of Jesus Christ. Very Palahniuk. Despite having wholly unresolved issues with his mother, Victor spends his free time trawling sexual addiction recovery meetings for dates and purposefully choking in restaurants for a few moments of attention. Longing for a hug, he's settling for the Heimlich. Victor induces choking to create lifelong bonds with other people after they save his life, sending him birthday and Christmas cards, perhaps with a check inside, reminiscing of that day when they did something spectacular, which was actually just another day for Victor. Haunted. This collection of 24 short stories, linked together by a group of aspiring writers who have sacrificed 3 months of their life to go to a strange writer's retreat, contains some of the most violent and graphic imagery that Palahniuk has produced. Guts opens the book, and has had people around the world fainting and vomiting from reading it and having it read to them. It concerns a young lad experimenting with new ways of masturbating, including sitting on the pool drain in his garden and getting off on a mixture of anal suction and asphyxiation. Unfortunately, instead of orgasm, he suffers a massive intestinal prolapse as his guts get pulled into the pool drain. He has to chew his way free and suffers massive internal damage as a result. Invisible monsters. Model Shannon McFarland has the lower half of her face destroyed in a mysterious shooting and is taken under the wing of drag queen Brandy Alexander as she builds a new life. Shannon and Brandy set off on the road stealing drugs from expensive homes by calling realtors and posing as potential buyers. Apparently the rich have the very best prescription drugs. Because this is Palahniuk, Brandy transpires to not be who we thought she was, and there's a twist in the tale. The destruction of her jaw creates a constantly gaping mouth and takes Shannon from a model to a hyper-visible freak, now largely isolated from a society that stares at her for entirely different reasons than before. Finally, Fight Club is the easiest to apply Bahktinian theories to in general. Palahniuk's insomniac narrator, a drone who works as a product recall coordinator, spends his free time crashing support groups for the sick and dying. He starts spending his free time even more strangely after meeting Tyler Durden, a guerrilla terrorist of the service industry with plans to screw up the world. Tyler and the narrator start up a fight club, a late-night sport in the basement of a bar where men fight to recapture a sense of real base masculinity. Tyler evolves the fight club into Project Mayhem, a super-secret strike group carrying out attacks on corporate organisations and symbols. Bakhtin himself describes the carnivalesque as a licensed mayhem, and says that, in the world of the carnival, the awareness of people's immortality is combined with the realisation that established authority and truth are relative. Tyler preaches that hitting rock bottom and losing all hope is freedom, and that by freeing themselves from wanting to conform to the truth of the world, that they become truly free. In terms of orifices, there is the destruction of the mouth again at the end, but more broadly, there are psychological boundaries being breached as the two consciousnesses develop and eventually war within the same mind. Excessiveness is considered a fundamental attribute to the grotesque, be this food, alcohol, or merriment. Palahniuk's attention to detail and his meticulous researching for each book is certainly in excess. By using unusual facts to enforce a sense of genuineness in his terrible skewed worlds, Palahniuk makes the ideas presented harder to deny. Palahniuk constantly critiques hierarchies and conventions within our world, from shallowness of what is considered beauty, the pettiness of what is now considered masculine power and authority, to the falseness of product people. When his characters disregarded, or are disregarded from these attitudes, their identity is destroyed to birth a new identity in what Bakhtin calls a pregnant death. Deep down, Palahniuk is a romantic, obsessed with a better world and better people in it. His usage of the Bahktinian grotesque making his books all the more original.
Get up, come on, get down with the sickness.